All right, welcome to Not Suitable for Adults. Now with pre-recorded episodes.
We're doing our best.
We're doing better than our previous best. Actually, it doesn't feel like it because we had an episode we recorded that was delayed in being released by yours truly. And then we had like a good and funny episode that was like ready and in the can a full week before it was ready to be released, and now that's just what we're doing.
This one is fully in the can.
Yeah, like right now we're recording, and there's an episode that people will hear before we release this episode, which isn't how we usually do things.
Hello to people in the future.
Yeah, this is us from the past. What's it like up there in the future now?
Yikes, I really don't want to know.
Yeah, it could be scary. Or it could be great. Who knows? Not us. We're in the past. Oh, hello, computer. Thank you for that. That was great. All right. Let's do some podcasting.
I have a lot to talk about, but I know you have a little thing, meaning a smaller-ish thing that you wanted to talk about first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean is I have like a big thing to talk about. Like mine takes up a lot of time.
Look at you, all fancy with your...
Mine meaning ours.
Yeah, it's both of ours.
Just go.
All right, I'm Rich.
I'm Natalie.
Yeah, we didn't do that part. Now you know who's talking. And we can start.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodness gracious. She's ready to talk about her thing, and I'm getting in the way of it.
No, I'm really happy you guys now know who is talking.
What if this is their first episode? We don't know.
Okay.
They're like, who is this?
Okay.
Where am I?
Okay.
Let's talk about Roblox. We usually talk about shows and movies, but sometimes we break that, like the time I talked about Captain Crunch recently.
Or when I've talked about books.
Or when you talk about books.
Or nursery rhymes. I'm going to talk about Roblox, which is a video game platform. It's not even really a video game. And this has come up in our house a lot in the last several months because it's a game that is accessible for free. It's free to play. You can get it on a phone or you can do it on a computer. And there are like kid-friendly things in this platform, but like it's not for kids necessarily. There are also not
there are also
kid-friendly
right
things.
So this isn't across the board like let your kids play Roblox, but I did learn some things about this.
Mm-hmm.
But here's been our experience. We Cora got really excited about Roblox because there's a bunch of YouTube creators that make content for kids that is them playing this game, and Roblox is kind of like a Lego type world or like a Minecraft type world where the animation's not like fantastic, but there's a bunch of different games created by users.
Yeah, so we let Cora watch. If she's just watching something,
Mm-hmm.
we let her watch YouTube Kids, which is usually very child-friendly content.
Yeah.
And it is. We love YouTube Kids. Usually she can kind of pick from that what she wants. She's also 5.5, so I'm just letting everybody know what her age is. When she's picking to watch Roblox, it's someone streaming their gameplay.
Right.
So it's usually a YouTube user playing the game and then like commentating as it's kind of like Twitch but for kids.
Yeah, it's very much so.
Yeah.
And so basically there's just a bunch of the idea is, and I'll get into some of the history of the company and like sort of where it came from here in a second, but essentially what it is like when you log into Roblox, you don't go into a game, you go into sort of a like not even like a traditional sort of like gaming lobby, but like a menu, and you can search like types of games in different categories, and people have created these games and put them in there for people to play, and you can play for free. There's usually stuff that you can buy in the games to like upgrade your player just in that game. But you don't have to do that. You can just pop in and do the thing, and usually it's like a go around and find all the little trinkets, or it's an obstacle course, which they call obbies. And that's usually what it is. Like, and that's usually what Cora would do. It's like mainly she was very interested in the obstacle courses.
Are we gonna say our actual experience with Roblox? Like real life experience?
Yeah, I guess so. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, so Cora had it for a little bit. We put it on her phone when she was able to play just anything that was free.
Yeah.
Then she started having like things that she was scared of that we realized were coming from the actual game. Like there was a particular game in Roblox. Like I said, Rich said, Roblox, you can choose several different worlds to play in. One of these particular worlds had a lot of fire and a lot of like a fire.
It was like Escape from the House or something.
Yeah, it was like a fire monster. I'm gonna say monster. And she started having a hard time with the thought of the house catching on fire, or a fire monster coming to her in the night or something like that. And then I was like, nope, we're done.
Yeah.
She says every day that I wish I could have Roblox back.
And this was like several weeks ago now. Maybe a couple
at least
months.
A month or two that we decided Roblox was not our friend at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe she wasn't quite ready for that. And she still complains that she wished she had it. And we still go, hey,
we get it.
This is the deal. This is the deal. So maybe not your 5-year-old's friend, but maybe older kids that aren't as anxious as ours.
and I'll talk a little bit about, because there's some features in the game that we didn't know about. Like, we didn't get hyper into it. We just kind of like when it started making her nervous, we just kind of stopped it. But let me give a little bit of background. This shouldn't take too awfully long. But this actually, Roblox as a platform was developed as early as 2004, so it's actually been around for quite a while. And it was officially launched in 2006. And
is it weird to think that? Sorry, that's not helpful. I keep setting my cup down on the desk that has the mics on it, and that's not helpful. Is it weird to think that 2004 is a long time ago?
Yeah, that was the year I graduated from high school. So yes, for sure. It's been around for a while now, and it's been like moderately popular among especially among like computer gamers. So like there wasn't as wide of a like PC gamers. There hasn't been a super wide like demand for it for a while until very recently. And that's actually with the advent of like live streaming gaming like Twitch and YouTube. And then even more so during the pandemic, it became actually, so this is like a funny sort of thing where if you're in like the corporate world, or even not even necessarily in the corporate world, like it's like how Zoom suddenly exploded. Like people were looking for, how can we have meetings all together? And I don't want to use Google's thing. I want a standalone program that's their job. We found Zoom. Zoom is it.
We found Zoom. Zoom has been around for forever.
Yeah.
And what I love is that suddenly everybody had to use Zoom.
So,
and the people of Zoom were like, yes.
Thank you. The same thing happened with Roblox. It was getting more popular, but all of a sudden here was a multiplayer gaming experience where you could have like private servers and have people get together and play together, and it was cheap and it was free, and you could create your own worlds, and it became like a very popular way to meet up with your friends online, so much so that like it even became regular and normal to like hold digital birthday parties in Roblox.
Yikes.
People would get together and like that's how they'd meet each other.
When I say yikes, I mean like, oh, that stinks that you would have to do that. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all meeting and trying to keep together virtually in 2020 to 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only very slowly getting back to the point where we're seeing people in public now.
Yeah. I would say from the research that I did, the biggest sort of sticking point and the biggest way that Roblox has been trying to improve really for the last like 5, 6, 7 years is with its chat and interaction features, which are like there are ways to like type into a world chat, but but basically to be a certain type of game that can be like widely consumed, they have to go through certain regulations, and those kinds of chat features have to be a certain amount of safe. And so that's kind of been something that they've gone through a lot, is like trying to find a balance of, okay, we need to have censored spaces for kids. We need to make sure it censors certain like words, in English in particular, which I don't know if it does anything else in other languages or not, but yeah, so that's kind of been the main way that it's been constantly trying to improve, so much so that Roblox, the company, recently bought a whole standalone chat platform that they're like working to integrate into Roblox to improve that experience.
That's, by the way, as a parent, that's also another thing that I'm not super fond of when it comes to being advertised to my kid, is I don't necessarily want her to feel like she needs to talk to people online. She can't yet because she doesn't know many words.
Yeah.
Like she can't necessarily, like, she's just learning to read and she's just learning to write words and sound out words and everything. So I know when she becomes more communicative, when she's able to type out responses and read responses to things, this would be something that I would want to monitor more closely.
So one thing that's here, and that's actually one of the pieces of like major criticism is how that is filtered, and because a big percentage of the people who are interacting on this platform now are minors,
right?
And especially because I mean, if you've ever seen this game, when I say it looks like a Lego knockoff, that's exactly what it looks like.
It looks like Legos, like just running around a world.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like Legos meets Minecraft in a way. Yeah.
So one thing to know is that we didn't know until I read into this, is that there are settings that you can get into to like set up your child's account as a child account and enforce parental controls. You can control who a user can interact with. I assume that means, we'd have to look. I'm interested to like go find it and see for myself what the controls look like. But I assume that means like including turning off chat.
That would make me much more comfortable.
And also limiting the types of servers and the type of
of worlds she can go into.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because there are, I mean, and it's one of those things when it comes to like an open world, open concept thing. There are whole servers that are devoted to adult content. Right. And so like that is something to be aware of, and that's something that people who are giving feedback on the game, so like when people are reviewing, like game reviewers are reviewing it, they're like, listen, you've got to, if you're going to give this to your kid, you need to watch what they're doing, because it's like letting them loose on regular YouTube. It's like you could sit them down in a place that you chose that's good, but they could leave, and Roblox, the like search page for where to go is just going to recommend stuff based on what that other thing was like. So like it's possible to go down a rabbit trail of clicks
Gotcha.
and get to something that's different unless you have any sort of controls in place.
So take this from a couple of real parents.
We are actually super real
that actually just recently went through this.
Mm-hmm.
If your child is interested in Roblox because he or she has seen it played on some sort of video streaming platform, know that this is available, that you can do this parental control thing. We went through this where we didn't know there was that. We didn't realize there was maybe more adult content, and I don't think she went on and saw anything too like graphic or anything, but she was at night worried about, you know, things that a kid shouldn't need to be worried about, like her house setting on fire, you know, stuff like that. So, and that's when we decided, okay, this is creating more anxiety than it's worth. So we immediately took it off of her device. So this is coming from two real parents that have gone through this trial and error, and she loved it. She loved playing Roblox at the time. That was also another thing. She didn't want to put it down.
Yeah, she was spending a lot of time.
She was
like,
playing, yeah.
you're you know, if you've listened to us for some time, that we don't mind. Like, we're not like super strict on screen time.
We love screen time,
but it was too much.
It got to the point where if we said you need to pause your game or it's time to stop your game, we're going to go do something else, it would end up being a battle. And we just started going like, okay, this is not worth it. And so we just decided, listen, this isn't going to be on your device anymore. And it was very hard for her because she really did like it a lot, but she's 5 and we are going to make the decisions at this point. And so anyway, all of that just to say, these are two real parents that have just gone through this. So we're just trying to say, hey, this is what worked for us. And also, we didn't know there were parental controls. But also, even though there are parental controls for our particular situation, I don't think we're going to be putting Roblox back on her device for a little while. Because of the behavior that it created, I believe.
Yeah. Real quick before we finish with Roblox, I do want to give one more little nugget of information about the scope of it, because it's hard to sort of grasp this. It's actually really hard especially if you've seen it played, because it looks like such a, like, it's really cool. First of all, like it's cool that from like a technical perspective that it exists. But it's hard to understand the scope of how like many people interact with this thing. So just some statistics really quick, and then we'll be done with Roblox. May of last year, it was reported that the most popular games in Roblox had over 10 million monthly active players each. In August of last year, there were 20 games that had been played more than 1 billion times, and at least 5,000 games that had been played more than 1 million times. So there are, like, to begin with, that means there are more than 5,000 games inside Roblox, like user-created games, which, I just think that's, setting aside our problems with it, it's super cool.
As a video game, as a virtual space where people can come and play together, it is an amazing feat.
And one other thing that is interesting if you're into video games is that they've sort of distinguished themselves in the free-to-play space, because usually free-to-play means you play the game, you're presented with like a tutorial, and after the tutorial, it's like, if you want to do this thing, you can buy some extra things, and then you'll get charge ups, and then from here on, you're kind of on your own. And they've sort of distinguished themselves because each game is different. The most successful ones don't have like a tutorial, so it's just like you're in, And then they just do microtransactions of like if you want a skin or if you want something else, or if you want like if you're in a thing like she was playing one game where like you have to collect these eggs to hatch little like friends to follow you around. And if you want the really cool ones, you can buy an egg.
Yeah.
Or you can go around and do tasks and then after several hours of play, you'll have enough stuff to go buy a cheaper egg.
That's another thing that a 5-year-old can't understand, which is I need to buy this egg in this virtual world. And mom and dad are saying, no, that's not where our money is going.
Right.
Our money is going toward feeding you in real life. Right,
because she'll watch this YouTuber go in and be like, because they're making money off of their YouTube channel, so they've gone in and they've bought billions of, they're called Robux. Mm-hmm. They've bought millions and millions of Robux, and so they're like, all right, we're going to get all the things. Let's see how long it takes us to get all of them. And they'll buy 100 eggs and then like sit there and hatch all the eggs and show you how long it takes for them to get all of them.
So a child that doesn't understand the concept of money and earning money and needing money to live might say, why won't mom or dad pay to, hatch my eggs?
Yeah.
And we're like, no, we pay to get you food today.
Yeah. So it's just, and the last little tidbit of information, in 2020, it was the third highest grossing video game with $2.3 billion.
I mean, it's a way to escape.
Yeah.
You go into other worlds.
Yeah.
You meet new people. You can talk to other people. You can do things you normally wouldn't have been able to do in the year 2020, which is anything.
Or you can create your own game.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
So that's Roblox. It's pretty cool. It's hard to handle for the littlest kids, so just keep an eye on it. But it's available on mobile and on PC, and probably there's a way to do it on Mac, but I know on PC. All right, let's take a break. We'll take a quick pull over.
Oh, I have so much to talk about.
She's like just bursting with information about our next thing, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back from Promoville. And we're back. We had a movie binge today.
We did.
For this next thing.
Because I said, you know what I haven't done? Is a deep dive on any of the Willy Wonka stuff.
Yeah.
Which, okay. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Mm-hmm. Also, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Mm-hmm. These are the two things that I'll be talking about. That we'll be talking about. Mm-hmm. I saw Willy Wonka as a kid.
Yeah, same.
But I also, So I also was super into musicals as well as older movies.
Right.
So this was my jam as a kid. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So let's talk about that first. First off, I wrote some notes as we were watching it. I hope this doesn't take too long.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Okay. First off, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, our first song that we get is The Candyman. Mm-hmm. And
who can make the sunrise?
I think we all pretty much know that song or have heard it in commercials. At least I know that it most recently, I believe, was on an iPhone commercial.
Yeah, it's on that, and I think it's been like sampled for wasn't it sampled for like a pretty popular hip hop song a few years ago? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know. I just know that we know the Candyman can,
right?
That song. So that is the first thing. That's the first song we hear sung by someone. It is sung by a candy store owner.
Yep.
In a candy store with a ton of children around. He's singing this song, and he is just throwing candy around.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we notice as we're watching this movie is that he's just, during this song, he's just letting these kids do a free-for-all with this candy.
Mm-hmm.
As he's singing the song, he also almost just like takes a little girl's head off.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, you know, the old what am I saying? On the bar where the door
Like the
would lift
countertop,
up,
yeah.
the countertop where the door would lift up so somebody could walk out. He lifts up that door and actually knocks a child actress's chin, and she kind of jerks her head up.
Yeah.
And this is actually in the movie where
Yeah.
he bumps this kid in the face
Mm-hmm.
with this wooden door, and it's just part of the movie.
Yeah.
So, hey, if you're watching this, check it out. It's right after he gives them like a drink. He hands them a drink, and then he knocks this little girl in the chin with this wooden door. Then we see Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
He's standing outside the window looking in like, man, I wish I could buy candy like these kids. And I'm like, get in there, Charlie.
Yeah. No
He's
one is
just
buying candy
throwing-
right now.
He is just throwing candy to these kids. Get in there, Charlie. You could be a part of the song. But Charlie's looking in the window like, man, I wish I could be like them. I wish I could
Mhm.
buy candy for myself. So, anyway, I'm just like, get in there. We had a little debate
Mm-hmm.
about where they were in this movie.
Yep.
Because he said, Rich said, where is this set? And I immediately went, it has to be London, London.
That's a little inside joke for you.
A little inside joke, which is, I mean, I'm just going to really quickly,
Okay.
super fast, a suitable for adults movie, Hot Fuzz, which we love the, what do you call them, the trilogy?
The Cornetto trilogy.
Yes, but also there's 4 of them, right?
No.
Is there 3 of them? Only
There's
3
three.
of
You're
them?
thinking of Paul, the one with them,
So
but
that
that's not
wasn't a
one. That's not
fourth?
part of the trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and their amazing duo. In Hot Fuzz, Simon Pegg's character is from London, and none of the people in the small town that he goes to can say London correctly.
Yeah, they all say it, and they all say it differently. So like he keeps getting notes from people, like people are calling and leaving a message for him at the police station.
London.
And they go, someone from Linden called for you. And he's like, okay, tell him I'll ring him back. And then later on towards the end of the movie, he's like in the back of Nick Frost's car. And he's like, just go back to London.
London.
So that's how we say London.
That's
London.
how we say London now. So when Rich said, where is this set? I immediately went, I mean, I always assumed it was London. I always assumed they were in London.
But the
actually,
problem, but before
ahead.
you reveal it, the reason it's confusing is that when you look at, when it feels pretty British, like you can, or not British necessarily, but European. Like when you're looking at the town, there's lots of cobblestone, there's lots of old buildings. The buildings don't look like the way that American towns are laid out.
Right.
But Charlie doesn't have a European accent.
right.
And neither does Grandpa Joe.
Right.
Who are like the main members of the family.
But
and
his mom does.
But his mom does, and his grandmother does. His grandmother has like a German accent.
So there are several European, German, British accents.
Mhm.
I'm just grouping them kind of. And then also there are several accents that we would call American.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Willy Wonka has an American accent.
right. So I was like, oh, now that I'm thinking of it, I have no idea. I just assumed it was in England.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into it, and the way the book is written and the way the movies are written is that it is just a town on Earth.
Yeah.
It is a fictional town, a fictional
In
city
our
on
world.
Earth. In our world. Technically, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was filmed in Munich.
Yeah.
So that's why we're seeing the more European
Yeah.
style homes and everything.
And lots of VW bugs.
Right. Okay, going forward, let's talk about the grandparents being bedridden for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what you said you read the book.
I did, but it's been a while. I don't remember a lot of the details from the book.
I don't think I've ever read the book.
I do believe that that all four grandparents being in the same bed is a feature of the Bucket family.
It has to be, because it is a constant factor in these movies. These grandparents, there are 2 couples, 2 men, 2 women, that are in a bed, Lincoln log style.
Yeah.
Lincoln log style in this bed. It has to be like probably like a king size. It's pretty
that big. It's a pretty small.
Maybe.
Well, okay, no. In Willy Wonka, it is. Willy Wonka, it's a pretty big bed.
Okay.
In Charlie, it's a smaller bed.
Okay, so it's a queen to king size bed where they're just basically kind of laying feet to feet.
Yeah, or like almost head to toe, but yeah.
And there's 4 grandparents in this bed, and Mom is there. In Willy Wonka, it is just the mom. Mom is there, and she is providing for this whole family. She's providing for herself, for Charlie, and for 2 sets of grandparents that are bedridden and have been for years.
Have you noticed the names of the grandparents?
Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Is the main grandpa.
Yep.
That's the only one anybody talks about. Is it Joe and Josephine?
It's Joe and Josephine and George and Georgina.
See, I missed George and Georgina. I knew Joe and Josephine.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I just think it's funny, and like that to me feels like a very little that feels like a children's book detail, like
right.
Grandpa Joe, Grandma Josephine, and Grandpa George and Grandma Georgina. Like,
yeah. Another thing we saw was Charlie comes up to Grandpa Joe and goes like, it was payday.
Yeah.
And gives him like a coin, whatever their currency is in this town. Gives him a coin and says, I'm going to pay for your tobacco now.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me, sir?
He buys a loaf of bread, a very luscious looking loaf of bread.
And then gives some to his mom to help provide, and gives a coin to his grandpa to help with his tobacco addiction.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then the grandpa goes,
right.
No, Charlie, I can't take this from you. I just need to not smoke anymore. That's a drain on our expenses.
Right. And he even says, you just spent a lot of money on bread. I need to be done with tobacco. I can give that up.
And then the mom goes, oh, Grandpa Joe, it's just a pipe a day. And then he's like, okay. He takes the coin from Charlie. Also, I wanted to go back to Payday because that was a sad moment too. Charlie, when he's at the candy store window and he turns away, he has a newspaper route. And so he goes to the newspaper stand guy and gets his rolls of newspaper into his little satchel. And he goes, it's payday today, isn't it, Mr. Whatever your name is? He's like, it sure is, Charlie. And he pulls out a big single shiny coin and gives it to Charlie. And I'm like, that's payday?
Well, it's probably like £1. Like if you're talking about like European money, it looked like a coin version of, I mean, I don't know European money, but there's a coin pound, right?
There is, but that still feels like a sadly small amount of money.
Very sad,
is
very
my point.
Sad, for sure. The next thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is that he has a terrible school teacher.
Yeah,
a terrible science teacher. I'm just gonna leave that out there for people that know.
But it is funny because first of all, he's mean and he's bad.
He's mean, he's bad, and he kind of isn't teaching science.
No, he's like, I have this special concoction that I make with nitric acid and glycerin and then this other secret ingredient. And then, like, if you're in the audience and if you do know even like a little bit about the things that he just said in chemistry, it's like, those are the ingredients to nitroglycerin, which is an explosive. And then he goes, you take the nitric acid and the glycerin and I'll take my secret ingredient. We'll just pour them into this bucket. And then they do,
And it
then it poofs in their face, and it's like, well, you could have like really exploded some stuff there, Mr. Science Teacher. But his main thing is like making the kids feel bad.
It was just a dumb part of the movie.
Yeah.
I felt like it didn't have a place in the movie really, other than showing that poor Charlie. Later, he talks about in their school, he's talking about statistics of getting
like
the golden ticket.
Yeah.
And the percentage of you getting a golden ticket. How many did you open? Oh, I opened 100. Okay, here's the statistics of that. How many did you open, Charlie? I opened 2. And he goes, oh, 200. I'm going to write it down. And Charlie goes, no, I opened 2. And he looks at him and he goes, 2? Well, I don't know how to calculate
2's too small. Why did you only open 2?
Why did you open 2? It was just, he's a terrible teacher, and I'm done with him.
One other thing that you just
said I was done with him.
No, we're not going to talk about him anymore. We're
Okay.
done with the teacher. But I'm going to say, because you were like this whole opening part is a lot about sort of feeling bad for Charlie and how bad Charlie's life is. We watched the CinemaSins
Well, I was going to talk about CinemaSins, but yeah.
Well, I won't get into like the whole thing, but like the guy on that show is like, man, this part, it was about this time that he goes like, man, I really forgot that even though this movie is called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, we don't see Willy Wonka or hear him speak until about 45 minutes into the movie. Right. And the first 45 minutes is all about making you feel terrible about Charlie.
Yes, and this movie is an old movie and it's a musical, technically.
Yeah.
And it is only an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of when it comes to musicals, really.
Yeah, it's kind of a musical. Like, it has musical numbers, but it's not a traditional musical, right?
Sure.
Moving on.
Moving on. Don't talk to me about musicals.
I know about musicals.
You don't know anything about musicals.
That's not true. It's not true at all.
Also, we have the guy with the scar on his face talking to the kids, and we later learned that is supposed to be, and I forget his name. Slugworth, trying to get the kids to steal an everlasting gobstopper from the chocolate factory to take to him so that he can make the same concoction to make an everlasting gobstopper. This guy with the scar on his face, who did I say it reminded me of?
The Nazi from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, because he has the scar. I mean, he looks like him.
I mean, he's like a skinny faced, like mutilated face, weird wire rim glasses.
Yeah,
he looks. Yeah, he has the Nazi look,
and he's pretty creepy. So, you see him every time a kid wins or finds a golden ticket. He's there, kind of whispering in the kid's ear, and I'm like, okay, parents need to see this child being taken and whispered into his ear. Later, we find out he was just a plant by Willy Wonka to try to weed out the ones that were there to just like get rich, or whatever.
By the way, Slugworth is in the story. Slugworth is the name of a competing candy brand.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is a terrible name.
Yeah, but he employs somebody to be Slugworth.
Right, yeah.
Say he's Slugworth.
Right.
Yeah. Also, my favorite person in both of these movies, I have a favorite character in each of these movies. And it's the person, when Charlie finds the golden ticket, he's being bombarded in both movies. One, by people trying to grab the ticket from him, or like trying to get him to have an interview or something like that. Another, people are trying to get him to sell the ticket to them, and they're offering ridiculously high prices that could help him and help his family. My favorite person in either one of these adaptations is the guy. There's always a guy that goes, Charlie, grab that ticket, hold on to it, run home.
Don't stop till you get there.
Don't stop until you get home.
Yeah.
And that's the person that's like, I'm looking out for you, and you just found this ticket. You need to run home to the people that won't take it from you.
Yeah.
And don't stop until you do. That's my favorite person, and there are So in the first one, you said it was you recognized him.
I believe it's the newspaper man. It's the guy that he works for.
Okay. For me, it was just a guy that was kind of in the crowd that I heard talking, but you recognized him as the newspaper man.
Because he actually says Charlie he knows him. Yeah.
Right. And in Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, it's the candy or it's the convenience store worker.
Yeah, it's just the guy who he buys the bar from.
Says, don't listen to anybody, run home and just get home, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Grandpa hasn't walked in 20 years and yet he gets up and does a jig. I'm just gonna say that.
And then sings a song about how he's got a golden ticket.
I've got a golden ticket. He says
Yep.
I've got a golden ticket. Like, excuse me, Grandpa, if you could walk this whole time, get up and get a job. Thank you.
Here's what I really think. First of all, I do think that's a silly, story point, is that the grandpa would be saying, look at me with my golden ticket. But also, I told you while we were watching it that I suspect that happened. I suspect that originally I've Got a Golden Ticket was supposed to be a Charlie song.
Right.
But Charlie
can't sing.
Is a bad singer. And he sings in this song and it's bad.
Yes. We were talking about this. This is a whole thing.
It's a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing. But we were talking about the boy who plays Charlie is not a fantastic actor.
Nor singer.
Yet he was cast for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Was that because there was a budget and they blew it on Gene Wilder? Is that what it was? Or is it just that there weren't a lot of child male actors of the time that would take this part? We looked into it, and we saw that Ron Howard was working around the same time.
Now, he would have been, I realized later, he would have been a little bit older in 1971.
Right. So Ron Howard would have been a little too old. And the boy that played... You said there was another boy that played... Oh, dang.
There were several, young boy actors who...
Shoot, now you said something.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Said someone specific. But there weren't, and this was a period of time where a lot of dramatic and singing actors, as far as children, were girls.
Yeah. Or even it's not even this period. I think that's probably mostly true even... there aren't a lot of modern musicals that aren't remakes that are other than in the last 2 years with Lin-Manuel Miranda writing stuff for brand new musicals that are becoming popular. But I would say up until Glee hit TV, if you were looking at a young musically inclined actor for a movie or TV role, most likely it was going to be a girl, and not because of any sort of gender thing, maybe, yes, but not because boys can't be singers and dancers, but partly because boys can't be singers and dancers, I think. You know what I mean?
At the time, I feel like this was a time, and I told you this as we were watching this, I feel like at the time, unless you were a man in this field that had already established himself in the singing, dancing field, not a lot of young boys, I feel like, were encouraged to take on a dramatic role.
Yeah.
Or to take on a artistic role, I guess, is what I mean. I feel like that was, it's not quote unquote manly for the time. And I feel like we're getting more to the point now where a lot more men are taking on dramatic, artistic, musical, theatrical, dancing, every type of role, just as much as females are.
Yeah.
And I feel like at this time there probably wasn't a lot of male actors out there,
like boy actors,
boy actors that were out there that really wanted or were encouraged to do this.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that probably is true. I was just thinking.
I mean, we had like Shirley Temple,
right?
Like Shirley Temple was
even
the
like
thing.
But she was even kind of and we talked about her actually during the movie.
Yeah.
But we were like, but she was even kind of a generation before.
Right. Yeah.
This. So, but also like just now I was thinking that's all true. But also I would say the boys who play Mike TV and well, not so much Augustus, but Mike, particularly Mike TV, are like, he's a better actor than Charlie is.
Yeah.
And none of the kids are amazing. I don't think.
They're kids. Yeah.
Except for the girl who plays Veruca Salt, maybe. She's really good. But
Veruca, and she even has her own singing part and does well.
Right.
Like, she does well acting as a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And she also has her own singing part.
Yeah.
And she does very well. So it felt like at the time there weren't a lot of options, I feel like, for male actors to
maybe
okay, blah blah blah. I'm going to skip forward
to the end.
They're in the factory.
Yeah.
Augustus has been sucked up by the tube,
as he does.
What's her face, I always forget, has been turned into a blueberry.
Violet Beauregard.
I don't know why I always forget her name. And then I believe Veruca has maybe already been taken by the geese or has been labeled a bag egg, but I'm not particularly sure. Yeah. They get to the Fizzy bubble room.
They do that right before the
right
egg
before
room.
Veruca, right? Okay. So they get to the Fizzy bubble room, and it's Grandpa Joe, that goes like, hey, let's take a taste of this. And totally pressures Charlie to take a taste of this thing. And when they take a taste of these, like, fizzy, what did they call it?
Fizzy lifting drink.
Yes. It starts making them float in the air toward this giant fan, which, in my head, as far as we're concerned watching this movie, Charlie and Grandpa Joe should have been eliminated from this contest, quote. This contest, they would have been somehow trapped in the fan, and the Oompa Loompas would have had to get them out of the fan or something like that and sing a song about them. These are the people, after watching Augustus and after watching Violet not listen to what they were told, they go in and they start taste testing things, and they are put in a precarious situation, and they figure it out. I mean, they have to burp their way back down.
Yeah.
But this feels like a thing that should have been like, you need to be eliminated at this point, and the Oompa Loompas are going to sing about you.
Also, and there's that aspect of it, but there's also, this is immediately after Violet has just like gone and grabbed something she wasn't supposed to and eaten it and turned into a blueberry, and now has to go to the squeezing. Like, it's different from it's one thing when Augustus gets sucked up the tube. That's one thing. That's like a safety thing that happened. It's like, it's weird that he got sucked up, but that's just weird. That's all that is. But now we know that there are things you can ingest in this place that will change you. That, like, there's magic in here, basically. And so they just saw that happen, and now they're like, and he goes in this room, he's like, yeah, there's all this stuff. He's like, we haven't got it quite right yet. Okay, bye. And they're like, let's just try it. I'm like, you just watched another kid just try it.
And it's fully the adult that says, hey, let's go in and do this.
Yeah.
Also, every time something happens after Augustus, you see Willy Wonka go, no, stop.
Yeah, no, don't, stop.
Please, stop. And that's just funny to me that he's just like, no, stop, don't do it. Also, something I noticed in this one versus Charlie, is that the Oompa Loompas are different actors. And I believe there were I think 10 or 12
Mm-hmm.
different actors that played the Oompa Loompas in Willy and the Chocolate Factory. In Charlie and the Chocolate... What?
You called it Willy and the Chocolate Factory?
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
You
Sorry.
you combined Charlie and Willy Wonka into just Willy.
I'm getting everything super mixed up in my brain. So there were 10 or 12 actors that played the Oompa Loompas in the original movie. And then there was just one actor that played every Oompa Loompa.
Like dozens of Oompa Loompas.
In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And his name was...
Deep Roy.
Deep Roy. And he did, I mean, I would have to say, tons of work.
Although, so here's the thing. I know we're jumping, like we're dipping into Charlie on this one. But the thing about Deep Roy is, one... First, there's like several ways that I think that got accomplished. There's sometimes it's him getting filmed over and over doing something. Other times it's like when they're in the rowing scene, they're in the boat and all the Oompa Loompas are rowing. That's like a bunch of different people and his head is just like digitally superimposed on their heads. And then also, we didn't talk about this while we were watching it, but the voice of...
The narrator.
Well, no, we talked about the narrator
Yes.
is a different person. Is no one else in the movie.
Yes.
But also the voice of the Oompa Loompas in the song when they're singing is Danny Elfman.
Right.
He records all the vocals to the songs.
Yeah.
And Danny Elfman, of course, is like the big time composer. He's the guy who writes the music for this movie.
So Deep Roy, I know we're kind of jumping between movies.
Yeah.
But I found a little tidbit about Deep Roy. He had to repeat a lot of the same movements a lot of different times to get everything to be put together digitally. And in recognition of this, his salary was raised an extra $1 million.
I mean,
which absolutely it should have been.
Back to Willy Wonka.
Back to Willy Wonka. I'm almost done with Willy, and then we will move on to Charlie very quickly. At the end, he's like, "Okay, we're done. We're done with the tour." He goes in. He sits at his half desk. Everything in Willy Wonka's office is in halves. He sits down, and Grandpa Joe comes over and says, "Doesn't Charlie get anything?" And he says, "No, Charlie gets nothing. You didn't follow the rules. You partook of
fizzy lifting
drink. I know about this, and that's, I mean, you basically stole it. And no, you don't get anything."
Yeah, you violated the rules.
Before they walk out, Charlie decides, "I'm going to be the bigger man."
Yeah, I'm going to be the most mature person in this room.
So he walks over. He takes the everlasting gobstopper that he was going to basically sell to the fake that he didn't know was fake. Slugworth.
Slugworth, nailed it.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say Slughorn. And sets it on the desk. And Willy Wonka says, "So shines a good deed in a weary world." And I love that. And then suddenly Charlie is the best kid on the planet.
Yeah, he always was.
He wins everything, and they get into the what's it called?
The Great Glass Elevator.
Yes, they get into the elevator and they go up, and they're gonna go up and out. And the grandpa says, "But it's all glass." And I go, this is literally what happened as we're sitting there. I said, "Wow." Shattering.
I just want to hang on because I just want to say that these are jokes, and I don't have these feelings.
They should know this by now.
I know, but I just want to, because it's the internet, and so I just don't want people to think that.
Just everybody chill.
Please know that these are not the feelings that are in my heart.
Everybody calm down.
This is just a joke that I make when Natalie makes these kinds of observations.
But this is also my joking observation. Is I said, "Wow, shattering a glass ceiling with 3 white males." They're in an elevator and they go up and they go through a glass ceiling, and Rich says, we got to go first to tell you what it's like. And I was like, I'm writing it down.
Oh, man.
And then they're just so happy and everything. And Charlie's like, can I bring my whole family to the factory? And Willy Wonka's like, absolutely. The end.
Yeah.
The end.
Did you know that and I think this is right. I'm gonna do this is me trying my best to remember when I read the Willy Wonka books, because there are multiples. The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory books. God, there's like 2 or 3 of them. When they at the end of the story in the books, they get in the Great Glass Elevator, and they leave, and they're like dealing with like, all right, you're gonna take over the chocolate factory, and then Willy Wonka gets a call from the president. And they have to go to the president Willy Wonka and Charlie have to help the president solve a problem that he's got.
I want to say a couple of little trivia things.
Okay.
I know we're probably running close.
This will just be a long one. It's okay.
Okay. So, when Gene Wilder decided he was going to take the role, he had one condition.
Mm-hmm.
And that condition was that when you first see Willy Wonka, he looks like he's walking with a cane.
Yeah. Oh, he wanted to do that
was
scene.
His thing.
I have an idea for a scene,
yes.
And if it's not in the movie, I'm out.
Yes.
I love that.
He wanted to walk with a cane, act like he needed a cane for assistance, and at the very end, he wanted to do a somersault and be like, ha! That was Gene Wilder's baby. That's what he wanted to do. He also beat out a few other famous people like Fred Astaire and Peter Sellers to
both of those, actually.
Right. To be that's just a couple of people that he beat out.
Like, listen, Fred Astaire and Peter Sellers are great. I'm not saying that they're, but just I can't. That's all. I can't.
Okay. The guy that wrote the books,
Roald Dahl,
hated this movie.
Sure.
He hated it.
Because it's really different from the book.
And he absolutely refused to let it be remade. Until he died in 1990. 15 years later, then we had Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Just, he hated the movie. I already said that it was shot in Munich. Let's see. Oh, Sammy Davis wanted to be the Candyman, the
now that would have been cool.
That would have been very cool. But the producers were like, no.
Come on, producers.
Idiots.
That would have been good.
Yeah, that would have been good. Only one of the child actors actually stuck with acting, and that was the actress that played Veruca.
Yeah.
Julie Dawn Cole. She went on to play in soap operas.
It might be because she was the best.
She was the best, like we've said.
She was the best child actor in this movie.
The boy that played Charlie actually became a veterinarian and lived in Cleveland, and he turned down a lot of other movies and just decided that he wanted to be a vet.
Was he like, did you watch Charlie? Did you watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, though? I don't know, guys.
The first time these kid actors ever saw the edible room was when they were being filmed at that moment.
That's cool.
That's very cool. They wanted to have actual reactions from the kids for that room, and that was their legitimate, genuine reactions.
Very cool.
Same with the Chocolate River. I mean, they saw everything at that point. The Chocolate River, by the way, it was chocolate cream and like 15,000 gallons of water, and it smelled terrible.
I'm sure. I have no doubt about that.
Let's see. Only about a third of the stuff in the chocolate room, they're calling it the chocolate room,
right,
was actually edible. When he was drinking out of the little teacup and then takes a bite of the teacup, that's actually wax.
Right.
So he like bit out of wax and then had to spit it for each take. Just a couple more things. So the boat scene was also quite scary for the child actors.
Sure.
Because the way Gene Wilder was in those scenes was very like ominous and kind of creepy.
It was scary for the child audience members.
Right. So that was actually their genuine reactions. Also, the very last thing I'm going to talk about with this particular movie is that at the end, when Grandpa Joe says like, well, what does Charlie get? And Willy Wonka says, he gets nothing, and like yells and screams at them. He actually had rehearsed that quite calmly. And then when they started rolling, he became super intense.
I mean, yeah.
So that their reactions would be a lot more startled. So it sounds like Gene Wilder really kind of like twisted a lot of Willy Wonka and kind of made him a lot more dramatic, I think.
I think that makes sense though. Like there's just like good acting choices though sometimes too, right? So like I think he made the right call there. I think if he had just been like, what about Charlie? Doesn't Charlie get anything? And if he'd just turned around and been like, no, you stole Fizzy lifting drink and that violates the rules. He signed the contract and he doesn't get to do it. So no, you win nothing. Like that wouldn't have been as good as the tirade he goes on.
He goes on a tirade, but the reactions that he gets from that, because they weren't used to him reacting that way.
Right.
But
then it's very genuine.
Was the genuine part. Okay. Right. So also, I'm just going to say, if you haven't seen CinemaSins, please watch CinemaSins.
Yeah, we're not affiliated with CinemaSins at all, but it's like really good, especially if you like really love movies, but you see like little plot holes and issues with it.
Yeah. It's
a pretty funny way to like enjoy those little movie mistakes and problems.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. One of the main things at the beginning is that Charlie has a dad in this one. In Willy Wonka, he just has a mom that's providing for everyone. Mom and dad are both in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Also, this is a Tim Burton movie, and when there's a Tim Burton movie, you know there's going to be a Helena Bonham Carter, and you know there's going to be Johnny Depp. That's just, I mean, he has just a love affair with both of those actors. He loves them.
Yeah.
In this one, Grandpa Jones worked for Willy Wonka. Grandpa Joe.
Yeah.
Worked for, you have a Grandpa Jones, or you had a Grandpa Jones.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say Grandpa Joe and start at that. He worked at the Wonka factory and then was laid off when people started stealing his ideas. And so that's why Grandpa Joe knows a lot more about the factory. You were excited to see Missy Pyle. You love Missy Pyle. I
forgot she's there, and she's a very funny actress.
We love Missy Pyle here. In the original movie, the grand prize was that they were going to be given a lifetime supply of chocolate. In this, if you found the golden ticket, your name was put in for receiving the factory. I was curious about this because I think I stepped out for the scene when you said, oh, it just says they get the factory. But later on in the movie they say they are asking him what's the secret prize. They're like, what do we get? So they're asking him about it later. In the second one? In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They're asking him about it later. Are they saying the secret prize, or are they saying the grand prize?
It's like they're asking and they don't know what they're going to get at the end of the thing.
I thought it said in its little thing, but maybe I'm wrong. They know that there's, in either one, that there's going to be a grand prize. I believe in the first one, they think that they're just going to get a lifetime supply of chocolate, and he ends up getting to move into the factory with his family. In the second one, I thought that they were looking for someone to take over the factory, but maybe they didn't know that yet.
Either way.
It's fine. We also talked about how the narrator is neither
This was funny, actually.
Yeah. So I said, their narrator. Who is the narrator again? It's Christopher.
And I was like, well, Christopher Lee,
right?
Is Johnny Depp's father in the movie. But I was like, but it's not him.
He said, no, that's not the narrator.
I thought it was
Deep Roy.
I thought it was actually Deep Roy.
And I said, no, I mean, at the very end, you see Deep Roy mouthing along with the narrator. It was supposed to be
as if an Oompa Loompa was narrating.
Yes. And I said, but that's not him. I'm pretty sure it's Christopher Lee that's actually narrating. We come to find that it's neither of them. It is Jeffrey Holder. He is narrating the whole thing.
Who has just a beautiful, velvety, deep voice.
Could listen to it all day. Also, Rich's quote from watching this movie was, remember when we all had hopes for Freddie Highmore?
Yeah, high hopes for Freddie Highmore. I was just thinking
and
about...
I was like, he's in a lot of stuff, and he's in a long-running TV show right now.
I think the thing is just, and he has, to your point, he has a lot of career left in front of him, so I'm not saying, like, it's over and he crashed and burned.
He's a real man now. He's a grown boy.
But my point, he's a big boy now.
Yeah.
My point is, when he hit the scene in, like, 2005, 2006, he was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So he was all over the place. He was in this, and he was in that movie August Rush, which was actually Natalie and my first date.
It was our first date. We went and saw August Rush.
And it just seemed like he was gonna be. And wasn't he in? There was something else big that he was in around that time. I can't remember. But he was in a bunch of...
I keep thinking The Sixth Sense, but that's not him.
really not him. But he was in a bunch of movies, and he was like the new up and coming, like, child actor.
Yeah.
And he kind of disappeared, and then he came back, and he was in a couple of movies, I think, and then he's on The Good Doctor.
He's
been
in
on
The
The Good
Doctor
for a while.
Yeah.
Which is basically like a more serious Doogie Howser.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's a doctor, I believe, that's on the spectrum.
But he's also very young.
He's very young,
he's like a
but
prodigy.
He's on the spectrum, so they don't know how to, like, handle him sometimes, so...
He's like a nice house.
He's like a nice house, an older Doogie.
Yeah.
He's like a younger house.
A younger, nicer house.
A younger, nicer house.
An older, better Doogie.
We have not seen
I haven't watched
Doctor.
a single second of The Good Doctor.
We've never seen it.
Never seen the show.
Also in this movie, we have a lot more origin stories of where the Oompa Loompas came from, as well as where Willy Wonka came from and his love of candy and chocolate and everything came from, which I don't know. I also, we were talking about how his dad is Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee plays a very prominent dentist.
Dr. Wilbur Wonka, DDS.
Yes, and Willy is his son, and he is not allowed to have any candy because it'll rot his teeth.
Mm-hmm. And he has this ridiculous headgear.
He has an insane amount of headgear that makes me think of the headgear I had as a kid, which I legitimately had the headgear that hooked onto my teeth, but also I had a bar that went from my forehead to my chin.
Mm-hmm. Which is basically what
it's what he had. Almost. There were a couple of extra bars that he had.
Yeah.
That almost made him look like he had a face mask. But me, it was just that one, vertical bar that went from my head to my chin. Poor
Natalie.
I had this. I was on the cutting edge of science. I want everybody to know this.
Yeah.
I was on the cutting edge of dental science. I was on the news.
Yeah.
This is
it's
not
real.
a joke.
I've seen the recording.
I was on the news as far as being there was a certain computer program that dentists were being able to use, and it was they were being able to see what a patient looked like, and then what a patient would look like in the future. Once their treatment was done. And I had this huge headgear, And they were on the news showing what this new computer program looked like, as far as how I looked
like
now,
mapping your experience.
which was a monster.
You just have like a big overbite, right?
I had a huge, is this underbite?
Oh no, a big underbite. Yeah.
I had a giant underbite. I could not chew properly. And then they were fixing it and they were showing how I would look. And then my mom had like this talking head on the news. She had this giant hair and she was wearing this big 80s blazer.
I mean, it was like 1996, right? Or something.
Early 90s like blazer with like a big like brooch on. Like she looked fabulous. And anyway, so we were on the news. So I know what it's like to have giant headgear.
So basically Natalie understands Willy Wonka.
Completely, 100%. Also, every time now I see a squirrel, I say squirrel. Daddy, I want a squirrel, because Veruca has this accent and she says daddy. And in the first one we have geese that lay golden eggs. In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory we have squirrels that are testing nuts,
which is book accurate.
So she says, daddy, I want a squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
That whole thing, the dad could have totally gotten to her if he wanted to. It was a gate that was like 2 feet tall. I would have jumped that thing so fast if I was trying to rescue my child from a squirrel attack, by the way. In this one, Charlie, when he inevitably wins in the end, Willy Wonka says, no, you've got to leave your whole family and come to the chocolate factory.
Yeah, this sort of is part of for me, the biggest difference between the two movies. And I actually pointed it out while we watched the 1971 version, and then we watched the CinemaSins of the 71 version, and then we watched the 2005 version. And while they're walking up to the gate at the beginning of the second movie, I was saying to Natalie, I was like, here's the thing about this movie. In the first one, Willy Wonka is like eccentric, but he's a good person. He weird things happen in his factory, and there are people who like have for years been like, now did Willy Wonka like plan to have these kids come and to teach them a lesson, and then like he knew that Charlie was the kid, and like was it very planned out? But there's nothing in the movie that like explicitly does that is like, yes, 100% he planned to hurt these particular children and he wanted to hurt them. In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that's the impression you get from Willy Wonka, is that he is a broken person and that he wants to hurt some children. Because when they come in, there's these moments where they're like, Charlie goes, Mr. Wonka, how did the Oompa Loompas know to put, he's innocently asking, like, how did they come up with a song about Augustus Gloop so fast? And he's like, oh, improvisation. It's easy. Anyone can do it. But then when they ask, and like later when they're in the nut room, and Veruca has already fallen down, and now the dad's going to go down, and the Oompa Loompas are going to sing a song about his daughter. He opens the door, and as the dad's walking by, he's like, yes, go down the stairs. With his eyes. Like, he wants these things to happen, and he planned for them to happen. That's the big difference, is like, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka is nuts. He's crazy.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Which, by the way, a lot of people have said Johnny Depp is a crazy person, and I really think he probably is, but he plays a really good Willy Wonka. I think I enjoy him as Willy Wonka.
Do you have the list, by the way? We don't have to do it right now, but do you have the full list of like who else could have been Willy Wonka instead of him?
Not at the moment.
I've got it in front of me when you're ready for it.
Okay. So at the very end, he says, you need to leave your family. And Charlie says no. And then they end up having a confrontation with Willy Wonka's dad. And he realizes family really is important. And then his family end up living in the exact same shack with artificial snow falling on them.
In the chocolate room.
In the chocolate room.
Yeah.
They're in the chocolate room, living in the same shack with artificial snow falling on them because, I mean, I guess they're happy.
The end.
The end. Who
I mean, yeah.
You said Jim Carrey could have maybe played.
So you mentioned before that Roald Dahl didn't want another movie adaptation to be made, and it wasn't until after he died that his estate started working with Warner Brothers to say, okay, maybe there's a way that this can work. Several directors before Tim Burton were considered, it was in development basically all through the 90s and went through several directors and several leading people. One of the directors who could have directed Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Martin Scorsese.
Yikes. Okay.
Feels like it would have been a very serious
movie. A lot more dark, I would have thought.
These actors could have been Willy Wonka, Bill Murray.
Too silly.
Nicolas Cage.
Oh, yikes. No.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, I think, would have done a very good job.
There's actually lines in this one that sound like lines that were written for Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
I think.
I think he would have done well.
Michael Keaton could have been him.
I can see that, I guess.
Here's the three wildest ones for me.
I'm ready.
Brad Pitt.
Okay. I'm thinking of all the different roles he's played.
This would have been, by the way, like in development in the 90s, this would have been like Fight Club Brad Pitt.
Right. You know,
not Thank You for Smoking Brad Pitt.
I think this would have been okay for him. Okay.
Will Smith.
Okay.
And the wildest one of all.
Uh-huh.
Adam Sandler.
No, too silly. Too silly, like Bill Murray. I think Bill Murray and Adam Sandler are too silly.
And then the next line in the Wikipedia article for this is like, and actually several others were considered, but those are like the big ones. And as soon, apparently, the moment Tim Burton was brought on, they're like, "All right, and here's where we are with the script, and here's where we are with the music, and here's where we are with like who we're thinking maybe." And he's like, "No, Johnny Depp and Danny Elfman's doing the music. Let's do this." Like he just turned it into a Tim Burton movie.
I mean, Tim Burton, like I said, is Johnny Depp, and Helena Bonham Carter will be in his movies,
and Danny Elfman will write the score.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, that's
also,
Willy Wonka and that's Charlie.
One other thing I wanted to say, because I said this while we were watching it, and it turns out to have not been fair, because at the very beginning there's like an intricate opening scene of like animated chocolate factory stuff happening. I'm like, man, I forgot this movie has a bunch of really bad like CG effects in it. And I was wrong. Like, as we were watching, I was like, okay, there's not as much as I remember. And it turns out that the majority of the environments in this movie are practical environments because it was Tim Burton. Because Tim Burton doesn't do a lot of digital effects. He does a lot of brightly colored real sets.
Right.
Which I just forgot about. And so when it came time, like, there are definitely CG elements of this movie, like especially the riding down the chocolate river is obviously a very CG.
I mean, yeah.
But most of the environments in this movie are practical environments, which I think is cool.
The whole point of these two movies is that kids are the worst, and that's why we decided to just have one.
Yeah, if there's one takeaway from these movies, I guess.
Kids are the worst.
and like...
You're thinking about it now.
I wish there was... I mean...
Honesty, integrity.
Yeah, being honest.
Blah, 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 blah. Kids
and,
are the worst.
Don't spend your whole life in
Family's
bed with your...
blah, 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 blah. Kids are the worst.
Don't like end up in bed with your child. Oh, that was something else I wanted to talk about. I don't care that this is a long episode. I'm going to go back and talk about how old the grandparents are.
Oh, right.
Now... It's possible that what we ended up thinking may be true, but there's a line at the beginning that because there's so
was it in Willy Wonka or was it in Charlie?
It was in Charlie.
Okay.
They make a there's a statement that's made. First of all, like they chose the oldest looking people to be the grandparents in both movies.
Yes.
Although Grandpa Joe doesn't look that old, really. Like he has
looks pretty old.
I mean, he looks old,
yeah.
but like the grandpa and Charlie looks much older. He's a very wrinkly man. He's an adorable old man, but like very wrinkly. And there's a scene where like Charlie gets his birthday present. It's the saddest thing ever. Gets a candy bar, and like he knows that's his birthday present. That's all he's gonna get. And they're like, open it. Let's see if you got the ticket. And he's like, well, hang on just a second. I want to. And he's like, I don't know. I'm Freddie Highmore. And and the Grandpa Joe says, Charlie, together we're 381 years old. We're not good at waiting.
Right.
And I went, wait a second. How old is that? And so Natalie did the math, and that makes them all about 95.
95 and a quarter each.
Right.
But then I said, maybe he's including the other people in the room. Maybe he's including mom and dad as well. Maybe even mom and dad and Charlie. But if he's not...
It seems like he's talking about the grandparents, because
Right.
he's sitting with the grandparents while he's doing the opening. And I was like, man, if he's 95, then I was thinking like how old that would have to make all the other characters, because Helena Bonham Carter in this movie she's very young.
Yeah.
Like she's very youthful, and the father doesn't appear to be very old, and Charlie's only like supposed to be 10
I was
at the
going to say
most.
11 or 12, but yeah.
And so yeah, it made me think about how old these people are supposed to be in these movies, and how out of whack that would be, and how whack that would be.
Okay.
'Cause that's a word I use.
No, it's not. I've never heard you use the word whack.
It's wickety whack.
No.
Do you have anything else about Charlie or Willy?
I'm so done with this topic.
They're very fun movies. I feel like they're movies that don't get watched regularly,
Right.
and that just makes sense.
And these are and the reason we're talking about them is because these are movies we watched as kids.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie, not so much. I watched Charlie more when I was an adult, but Willy Wonka I watched as a kid.
We didn't talk about the secret third chapter of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is the version that Cora knows.
Yes.
Which, when it started,
Cora was like, I've seen this movie.
she's like, I know this song. She was hearing the I've Got a Golden Ticket song playing, and like as it's opening, she's like, I know that song. And we were like, we don't think we've seen it. I was like, oh, you know what? I remember there's a cartoon version with Tom and Jerry where they do like just the highlights and sing all the songs. And I was like, yeah. I was like, so yeah. I was like, Cora, if you watch this movie with us, you'll probably recognize all the music in it. And she watched a good portion of that first movie with us.
Yeah.
And that's all we have to say about Willy and Charlie.
So done.
There's a Tom and Jerry version out there too.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us again for an episode not suitable for adults. We're gonna keep trying to keep these episodes coming out regularly again as we get hopefully into a swing of things. Do a little bit of working ahead for you. We appreciate, as always, Shad Warrell for creating our awesome theme music. And you can find more from him at soundcloud.com/shad-warrell. And there's a link in the show notes for that. And it doesn't matter which version of Willy Wonka you enjoy. You can go literally to HBO Max and watch either one, because they're both right there, because they're owned by Warner Brothers. Just no matter like what, while you're looking there and you're trying to decide, don't let anyone tell you what to do, because just you're the boss.
So watch whatever you want.
Okay, bye.
Bye.